And this is Flick.
This is Rudy.
And this week we are having a draft for one Jim Osterberg. Iggy Pop is our subject of our third fantasy draft, and we'll be having that next on episode 31 of the Left of the Dial podcast.
All right, this one you may well know, you may not know it, and if you don't know it, I really don't know where you've been.
You forgot? Forgot the magnetism of Robin Zander or the charisma of Rick Nielsen?
That's kid stuff.
It's just come up to 5:35 a.m. Kommen Sie bitte und listen to Kraftwerk.
I don't know, man. I kind of like Van Halen.
Well, yeah, Plum, you do. And you know why you do? Because corporate America is shoving something down your throat and making you believe it because that's what they want you to believe. I mean...
Okay, buddy. I was just trying to cheer us up, so go ahead. Put on some old sad bastard music, see if I care.
That was Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell, a song in which Joni complains that they paved Paradise to put up a parking lot. A measure which actually would have alleviated traffic congestion on the outskirts of Paradise, something which Joni singularly fails to point out, perhaps because it doesn't quite fit in with her blinkered view of the world. Nevertheless, nice song.
How about the tunes? I want you to want me. The Dream Police. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Your mama's alright. Your daddy's alright.
I get by because the people who make a special effort to shop here, mostly young men, who spend all their time looking for deleted Smith singles and original, not re-released underline, Frank Zappa albums.
Gang. Yes. I mean, look, you can play an E pentatonic scale at 100 miles an hour till somebody's ears burn off. You can learn that, right? But finding the tangents within the framework, therein lies the artistry, man.
God made your ears. You didn't make them. You gonna argue with God's ears? If it sound good and it feel good, then it's musical. So play it like I say play it. From the top.
That was Sweating Lunatic Iggy Pop, part of our Tuesday night punk pack, which is climaxing at midnight with Madness. This is Norfolk Nights with Alan Partridge, and we're in the middle of Super Talk. Super Talk!
Have a pretty busy week here on the Left of the Dial pod. We are episode 31. We are going to talk new music this week. We're going to commemorate the life of Bohannon. We're going to talk about him a little bit, and we have a pretty big draft this week, Mr. Flick.
That's right. We're drafting Jim Osterberg. You might know
James Osterberg.
James Osterberg. You might know him a little bit better as Iggy Stooge or Pop.
And why did we pick this week for Mr. Iggy Stooge?
Because he turned 73 this past week, April 21st, I believe it was, and he is 73 years old and celebrating his birthday by doing a little fantasy draft.
Now, if it was 1973 and you were offered odds that Iggy Pop would live to 73, do you think you could have gotten action all day? Nobody in the world believed that Iggy Pop was going to live to be 73 and be thought of as a fitness model at that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been available to make that bet with, but if you would have made me that bet, we could even say in the 90s or in the aughts or whatever, I might not have taken you up on it.
Yeah, he's clearly Twinkies, roaches, and Iggy Pop would survive, the atom bomb. There's just nothing. He's just never going to give up. Anyway, we're going to be talking a lot about Iggy Pop. I want to kick off and talk a little bit about the loss of a guy who is famous for a lot of reasons, and he's probably got like a group of lots of groups of distinct fans. The artist was known as, I think probably he's most famously known as Bohannon. Now, when I was young and the Tom Tom Club album came out with Genius of Love, I knew that they were singing Bohannon, 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 Bohannon. I didn't know what it meant at the time. Like, I didn't know what they were referring to. They were referring to a guy named Hamilton Bohannon, who was who played in the house band at Motown Records. So, like, if all Hamilton Bohannon had ever done was play in the house band on Motown Records, I think he would deserve some time. We would devote time just to that. But he not only did that, and again, I live outside New York City. I work in New York City, and I have some friends. I'm about to turn 50. I have many friends in New York who are around that age who've lived there their whole life. I mean, I'm literally fell off the turnip truck, and I moved from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to the East Village in the 90s. Yeah, literally fresh off the turnip truck. But the lots of the folks I know who grew up there and lived through the club culture and stuff, they really revered Hamilton Bohannon, because if you think about how by when did the Disco Sucks thing happen at Comiskey Park? 77, 78, somewhere in there?
I want to say 78. I'm not too sure.
Could be 79. Yeah, by then...
You're talking about Disco Demolition Night, just so...
Yeah. Disco Demolition Night.
Yeah.
In Comiskey Park. That's what Wikipedia is for. If you do not know what Disco Demolition Night is, I'm not a huge Steve Dahl fan, but I'll give Steve Dahl credit. He did admit that, like, he's like, look, I was like a fat schlub and I couldn't dance. Of course I hated disco. No chicks would go out with me because I couldn't dance. Of course I hated it. At least he admitted that his hatred of disco was irrational, or it was the only possible rational explanation, sort of. But anyway, by that time, by the late 70s, early 80s, disco was kind of a dirty word. And the disco culture of New York had really been thought of as sort of faddish. But by I think it's 1981, when Bohannon made the record called Let's Start to Dance Again, which is a great... I love the song Let's Start to Dance Again a lot. It's a incredibly funky song, but it's tight and it's real bass driven the way that disco was. Like, it basically found a way forward for the spirit of disco to live on beyond the faddishness and the white suits and I'm not dissing Saturday Night Fever either. I love Saturday Night Fever and I love the Bee Gees' contribution to it. So I'm not dissing it, but that became kind of a parody of itself, disco culture. And Bohannon figured a way to get the dance music to go forward. I'm going to throw the song Let's Start to Dance Again on, and I'm going to throw the Tom Tom Club's Genius of Love. Now, Mr. Flick, we talked a little bit before the show. The song Genius of Love is not exclusively about Hamilton Bohannon, but his name is mentioned in that song more than anybody else's name. So I'm going to say it is a bit of a love letter from the Tom Tom Club to the New York club scene, and acknowledging that, Bohannon, I think, was a radio disc jockey there too, but acknowledging how important he was to keeping the funky music alive. I think Genius of Love is a fitting tribute. Like, that really is his own career, and his own achievements are towering, but Genius of Love is more popular now than it was at the time. Like, more people know that song now than ever did when it was new. I really think like that'll end up being probably the most known monument to Mr. Hamilton Bohannon, who died this week.
Well, and he does have other notable credits that you touched on. For one thing, his entrance into the Motown world was as a touring drummer for the then 13-year-old Stevie Wonder. So that's how he got his Motown start.
Stevie Wonder's a hell of a drummer, so for him to allow you to play, he had to be pretty good.
Yeah. Although maybe at 13 he wasn't quite as accomplished a drummer then. I don't really know.
He was a harmonica virtuoso. I can't imagine the other stuff was too far behind.
No, probably not.
Anyway, I also believe that the song Genius of Love makes the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense such a great concert. To have that song to be able to break up that set. Because the Talking Heads, like, I am a weirdo, and I'm okay with that. I tend to like the darker stuff in their catalog, and they really found a way to sort of do like they did the funky stuff, they did the very heavy high life African influence stuff, but there was sort of a little bit of a darker edge to the Brian Eno era with the Talking Heads, and I thought the reason that you couldn't, even though the movie Stop Making Sense is filmed super dark, and everybody's clothes is like dark or shaded gray in some way, you know what I mean? Like it's a very dark and stark thing. The to be able to put Genius and Love right there in the middle really allows the pacing of the show and really allows the narrative of the song scheduling to work and make it as great as it is. So I'm going to give Bohannon some indirect credit on making Stop Making Sense so great. You don't have to agree.
But as far as Stop Making Sense?
Yeah.
Well, I like Stop Making Sense. I like Tom Club. I totally get what you mean. I'm not sure I've ever think of Talking Heads as too dark, but I think maybe I understand what you're getting at.
The Overload is creepy as hell. Drugs.
It's definitely a change of pace when the Tom Club, Tom Club portion of Stop Making Sense is definitely a change of pace. For sure.
I think for me to not see the Talking Heads, that's in my top 10 regrets that I didn't get to see the Talking Heads because they could fucking bring it. And I think that film proves it. Although the name of this band is Talking Heads, I think they bring it on that too. Anyway, Mr. Hamilton Bohannon, rest in peace. And definitely give him a try. I think he understood why disco was good. He kept the parts that were good and found a way forward. And a lot of the dance music that ended up being really, really great, the LCD sound system, Holy Ghost, Yacht stuff, I think all bears a heavy, heavy debt to Bohannon. I think it's DFA Records, I think, owes a lot to him. And that's been a lot of the great music of the last 20 years has been that sort of new freestyle type stuff. So that's very sad. It has been a very, very busy year for new music. I think you have 3 albums today, sir.
Yeah, it seems like it's hit really hard lately. I felt like the year got off to a bit of a slow start, but April has had some good stuff in it. I have another big album that I liked a lot. One album I like, and then another album I'm pretty lukewarm on. But you also had some singles you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I have. I think the only album I want to mention, and is Danzig is just putting out an album called Sings Elvis, and he really doesn't. It's kind of a novelty record, I guess, because it's Danzig, but it's not. It didn't strike me as really a novelty record, and he didn't pick all hits. You can't call it faithfully rendered, I guess, but in his own way, he is kind of Elvis-y. Like, he is over the top and borrows a lot from Elvis. I would say One Night is my favorite so far. If you go back and I'm going to put Elvis's version of One Night in our playlist, that thing is fucking filthy. It's filthy good, the original One Night. And so I was very pleased that Danzig not only did it, but he's trying. He means it. He's a fan. So it's a bit of a novelty record. I can't say it's the most important record of the year, but having a new Danzig record isn't bad, and having it be all Elvis covers is frankly pretty good. The new Rufus Wainwright, Alone Time, I like a lot. I wouldn't describe myself as a huge Rufus Wainwright fan. I can't listen to all of it, but he's easily one of the most talented performers on earth. Like super nosebleed high elitas in terms of his talent and his performance, and sometimes his songwriting I think is masterclass level too. I wouldn't go that far with Alone Time, but it's good. The new Bright Eyes, the second single from that, Forced Convalescence. I mean, come on, we're all on lockdown and quarantine, and the second song out on the Bright Eyes record is called Forced Convalescence. It's pretty good. I dig it, but I read that they had to cancel their tour, which is a show I might have gone. The new No Age is called War Dance. It's great. I really like No Age, so I'm a bit biased. The new Psychedelic Furs is good. The new Hani El Khatib is it's a little bit lightweight, but it's good. I hope an album is coming from him. This is his third single in a row. And then probably the two most important new singles are Dramarama's Up to Here. We mentioned bands that are LA famous last week, and Dramarama to me is one of the all-time great LA famous bands. A lot of their good stuff isn't on the streaming services, and it makes me very angry. But at least the new one is. It's called Up to Here. And then, I mean, the new Rolling Stones is called Living in a Ghost Town. I don't think the Rolling Stones made much worth listening to after Tattoo You, or well, no, Emotional Rescue, Undercover. At least they have a couple decent songs on them.
Well, Emotional Rescue is before Tattoo You.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. Undercover might be the last defendable Rolling Stones album.
I won't defend that one too strongly.
The single was good. Undercover the Night was at least an update and interesting. It's an interesting update to their sound. It wasn't particularly successful. I don't know if they needed to ever do it again, but they kind of did. This song, Living in a Ghost Town, I think compared to most of their last 30 years output is pretty good. I think the nicest thing I could say about it is maybe if it had been put out on Black and Blue, nobody would think Black and Blue was any worse because of it, which
or
faint praise perhaps. Yeah, it's like about the caliber of Black and Blue. I wouldn't cross the street for a free copy of Black and Blue, but compared to most of their last couple albums, Black and Blue is genius. So I'm pleased with it. If this ends up being the last thing they put out, at least they didn't completely shit the bed with their last release. At least it's respectable and tolerable, and you can defend. There's a reason for it to have been released. I'll put it that way. Boy, that was a nasty review. I meant to say nice things. It just didn't come out that way.
Yeah, well, at least you're closer to my opinion on it with what you said.
That's all I got. I actually think you're the bigger Stones fan, but you are a pickier Stones fan than me.
Yeah, and I don't like the new one very much. It might be true to say that it's better than a lot of what they put out post Tattoo You. But that doesn't mean, I don't even know how much it's worth talking about, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, another seemingly, it seems maybe a little less slapped together than a lot of their recent stuff. But of course, it has to have that touch, that Mick touch to it, that, Mick has to do something where he's pandering to a younger audience. And these are always like the moments that I think bring the Stones down, is when they try to pander to a younger audience. And of course, Mick has to resort to the auto tune on this one. And that's the new chapter in that book, So that's really all I want to say about it, though.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not going to argue with you. One, we're just expressing opinions, so you can't be wrong. I can't be wrong. I think we're both sort of used to the idea. Neither of us were waiting around for a great Rolling Stone records to come out. So if another day passes and another great Rolling Stone record doesn't come out, I wasn't expecting anything other than that. The fact that a passable, serviceable, and quite reasonably listenable Rolling Stones song came out this week, I think is noteworthy. We had to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's that noteworthy, really. They're going to continue to put out things every now and then that are lacking inspiration. And if someday they put out something that does seem inspired, then that's the day I'll rejoice and want to talk about it, I guess.
That'll be the day.
But anyway, on the note of things I do want to talk about and things that are inspired, I really enjoyed Lucinda Williams' new album, Good Souls, Better Angels. And that is one I've already mentioned, because there have been some preview tracks put out on this one. And I've mentioned them as they've come out and liked them all. Especially You Can't Rule Me. That's definitely one of my favorite songs of the year so far. And I would say that's still my favorite song on the new album. Maybe more so. Like for me, usually everything comes down to how good the songs are. I would say maybe in the case of this album, even more so than being a good collection of songs, I love the way that this album is recorded. It totally has a feel that you're seeing Lucinda Williams in like a small bar, or maybe like, like a club like Antone's, if you're familiar with Austin. It totally has that feel, maybe better than any album that, because I assume that this album was recorded in the studio, but it has no feeling whatsoever of being recorded in the studio. And it's just, like, I'm amazed that I haven't heard an album accomplish that in the way that this one does. I've not heard that before.
It's a good record. I'm not sure I'm as deep into it as you, but no argument here.
Yeah, and so a few songs that I'll mention, that are the songs I really like on this. I already mentioned "You Can't Rule Me," "Shadows and Doubts," "When the Way Gets Dark," and "Man Without a Soul." And okay, so I guess you've already talked about your new stuff, so I'll just move on to the next. I liked Brendan Benson's album "Dear Life." Not as much, like Lucinda Williams. Definitely, that's the standout album of the week for me. Brendan Benson's new album "Dear Life" is also a very good one, and it's one that, for me anyway, like the first few tracks, I wasn't into, and I thought that it was going to be a dud. Like I heard. I heard the title track first, which is not the first track on the album. I heard that first, like that, and then I was like, I'll check out the rest of the album, and really didn't like the first few songs on the album. But then it really was backloaded, because from that point on, the rest of the album was all pretty good. Just got off to a rocky start. And then one definitely worth mentioning, but one I think is a very so mediocre album, but worth mentioning anyway. The Strokes' new album, The New Abnormal. Probably not not anything that's going. It's really, the Strokes, I don't think have had a breakthrough in their catalog since their debut. But I think a few songs here and there that are worth listening to, and that's kind of what you get with the new one. I like Bad Decisions and The Adults Are Talking, and The Eternal Summer, which is very new wavy sounding, very kind of has a sound similar to Ghost in You. Maybe you even would want to call it a ripoff, but it sounds pretty good. And yeah, so I definitely want to stress, don't go looking for anything great here, but there are a few songs that are worth listening to on it.
Yeah, the Strokes are overrated. That first record's good. It is pretty good, but it's so derivative. Everything they do is so derivative, and every once in a while, a derivative band is better at imitating the thing than the original thing was. That's not true of them. Is your favorite album of the year still going to be the Waxahachie record?
Yeah, so far Waxahachie is my favorite of the year. The ones I've liked the Wolf Parade album a lot. I like the Lucinda Williams, and I like the Fiona Apple. I feel like I'm probably forgetting something somewhere that I really liked. But
the Wolf Parade record is up there, and my big one is the Warlocks. This album's been building on me. I don't know when exactly it came out. They put out like 5 albums a year or something like that. But it's really taken me in a psych rock direction. It's good stuff. I'll talk about it in the future. But it's interesting. How is the quarantine affecting your recording today, the 26th of April? How is the quarantine affecting your listening? Are you doing more than normal or less?
I'm doing. I think I'm doing more than normal because we're doing the show. So but not really more than normal because of the quarantine, I don't think.
Yeah, I've been getting my fair share in, but I find myself going for comfort music more than I should. Probably psychological. What are you gonna do? It's been over a month staying in the house. Well, what are you going to do? All right, is it time to talk about our man from, he's not from Detroit, right? He's from like Grand Rapids or something, or Ann Arbor.
He's from Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor, yeah.
Yeah.
Our man from Ann Arbor, it's the best thing from Ann Arbor. What's better from Ann Arbor?
I don't know. Wolverine football? I don't know.
Wasn't Grand Funk Railroad from Flint?
Now you're going to make me go to the...
Yeah, because U.S. Highway 23, I think, is the one that connects Flint directly to Ann Arbor. I'm pretty sure. Or is it the 696? I spent a couple months living in Detroit last year. Got to know it a little bit. Ann Arbor's way closer to Detroit than you think. It's not that far.
I know how close it is.
It's so while old Jimmy James Osterberg was from Ann Arbor, you can't miss the Detroit pretty much all over him in one form or another throughout his entire career. This is going to be a hard one in the sense that, I mean, again, I'm just giving you my read of it. You're going to read the rule, or you're going to say the rules next. But like, this is a tough one because he does have gems in every phase of his career. And for you, there's no decade where he took the entire decade off, but the decades aren't even by any means. The output is very uneven, I would say, maybe even outside the 70s, I think it's pretty uneven. And so we have to put some rules in place because we can't just sit there and do The Idiot and Lust for Life and the Stooges, right? You know, we can't just do all 70s, which would be very tempting, I think, otherwise. So we do have some rules this week, and we're going to 16 apiece. So that is to ratchet up the difficulty level, as we put some heavy rules in, and we're doing 16 apiece. So strap in.
Okay, so yeah, the rules are 16 songs apiece. We have to cover at least 11 different albums in the 16 songs. Or should we change? Is 11 right, or should we change that to 10?
11 was the last number we discussed.
Okay, so yeah, so it was 10, and then I changed it to 11. So it's going to be 11. Okay, so we can have no more than 3 from any one album, and there's only one album we can have as many as 3 from. We can only have, let me see, I have 8 songs pre-1980. Is that what I gave you, or did I say 9?
I thought it was half. I thought we were saying half pre-1980, but I could be wrong.
Well,
I could have just shorthand thought it was half.
If you're prepared for that, like I thought the last thing that I had was 9 for...
Take it. 9 it is. 9
Okay.
can be before 1980, and that's released, not recorded.
Right.
Which matters in this case, but go ahead.
So we can have as many as 9 pre-1980 songs. That doesn't mean you have to, though. And we have to have a minimum of 2 different albums represented from 4 different decades between the 70s and the 10s.
Yeah.
Or teens, however you term it.
Yeah.
And we have to have a minimum of 1 song from each decade.
Yes, it seems like a lot, but look, we're forcing ourselves to go deep outside of the 70s and maybe 80s, but 70s for sure. The strategy on this one, I think there's only one way forward, and I do believe I go first this week. But you shouldn't fear me going first, because I would never use your own confessions against you. This isn't the Stasi. You have already confessed the importance of the song Lust for Life. And while I do go first, it is because I don't want to live in the kind of world where I have to take that song just to nerf your list. So I'm trying to be a gentleman.
We should discuss this, though. Do you go first? Because I thought you went first on the... So, okay, yeah, I did go first in the Beatles draft, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't remember that right.
Now, I would be willing to trade you first for 3 firsts in a row if it's important to you, but it shouldn't be.
No.
Because I'm already telegraphing that I will leave Lust for Life for you.
Well, I'm very thankful.
Because I could have it.
Yeah.
And I could be... I don't think I have that much bitch in me. There's a little bit of bitch in there. Not that much.
But I do want to say before you proceed, though.
Yeah.
As we do this, I think it's we need to also spell out how the song that we're picking conforms with the rules so that we can keep track of this as we go.
Yeah. Now I want to do a little lawyer ball here because there are, you know what? I'm not gonna do it beforehand. I'm gonna do it on my pick, and because I think I'm within the rules here, but we'll see. Because I'm going if I'm going first, I don't, you know what? In a way, I can give away the strategy because I've already told you I'm not picking Lust for Life first, even though, I mean, that's a no-brainer. However, there's only really two strategies here. We're either going to compete for the 70s stuff at the beginning or at the end. And we're going to have to compete for the other stuff either at the beginning or the end. I feel strategically, for my taste, it is best if we compete for the non-70s stuff first. If you go 70s, then all we're going to do is we'll have to just resolve the 70s and go back to it. So you could do what you want. I'm going to start first, and this is where the lawyer ball may come in even on pick one, but I must insist I have this one. I'm taking Repo Man, which is not from an Iggy Pop album per se, but it is from a distinct album. Now, Repo Man is not streaming, but the demo is, and the demo's pretty shit hot too. So I'm going to go first. I'm grabbing Repo Man from the Repo Man soundtrack, which I'm going to count as a 80s. It's 80s.
Yeah,
and it doesn't come from any of the big 80s albums.
Yeah, it's like 84, I think.
The demo is March of 83. I'm looking at it.
The movie soundtrack was 84.
Right. So there we go. I'm kicking off. I get Repo Man from the 80s. And I can leave Lust for Life now. See what I mean? It all works out.
Yeah, and you got a good one. I commend you on that pick. That really, I'll tell you right now, that was my highest rated 80s Iggy tune. So
there's only one strategy that makes sense here, and going first is key. I'm my biggest fan right now. I'm loving me some me on the Repo Man pick.
Yeah, I like that pick, and you're right. I mean, there wasn't any getting around. I was going to go for Lust for Life first. I mean, it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's there wasn't any way around it, and I wasn't going to strategize my way out of picking it first. So yes, I'll officially announce the number one pick for for Flick's picks in the 2020 Iggy Pop, aka James Osterberg draft is Lust for Life from Lust for Life.
Yeah. Again, I feel like I know how this thing works. Now, the next hardest thing after the getting a good 80s pick to me is getting a pick out of 1969, which is the Stooges album. Now, I know that I'm supposed to take I Want to Be Your Dog, but I'm not going to. I am taking No Fun.
Yeah, I knew you would.
I believe is superior to it's my favorite. I don't know if it's the best song on the album, but it's my favorite. And I believe that part of its importance is that it gives Iggy Pop and the Stooges the right to be proto-punk. The fact that the Sex Pistols picked up on the energy of this song. I mean, for Johnny Rotten to be so famous for hating hippies and being against the 60s, you can't get any closer to really the getting over the hippie shit. Like, you can't make a more affirmative a statement against hippie shit than No Fun from the Stooges' debut album in 1969. I had to have it. I was willing to give up Lust for Life as bait to get you to take the bait and steer clear of my most important prized possession here, which was No Fun. So there we go.
Yeah, see, this is like the first draft already where you've started off taking two songs I really wanted to have.
Well, we haven't. The 70s albums, I think, are going to be harder. It might be harder than you think from where you're sitting. That's all I'm saying. We deliberately made this hard because of the catalog depth. We deliberately made it hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we strive to do with
that is right.
But
This is what striving sounds like.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I know you love I know you love that song, and so I knew that was going to be like your I thought it could be even your number one pick. So
yes, but I felt like I would definitely could pick. It's like, this is very much like the NFL draft here. I thought I could kick it to second if I left Lust for Life open for you. I felt that was the best way to get my good 80s and good 60s out of the way.
Well, all in all, if I have to trade places, I'm not going to, because I want to come away with Lust for Life. But the upside of this is that I do, I Want to Be Your Dog is not a cheap consolation prize. That is a very worthy song, which I am going to take with my number 2 pick. So
damn, it's gonna be a hell of a draft, son.
That's right.
Well, look, I don't know anybody who would have listened this far who does not understand why we're talking about the Stooges' debut album with reverence, and I think everybody would understand almost the entirety of the Stooges catalog being treated with reverence. Certainly, Mach 1. So we'll be back to the Stooges, I think, sooner than later. I'm going to go real left field here, but I gotta grab the pick. I think the aughts are thin pickings, and I'm just going to say what I feel here, and that is the best thing with his name on it in the first decade of this millennium is his appearance on the song Punk Rocker by the Teddy Bears from the album Soft Machine in 2006. I think lyrically it's one of his more interesting songs. It's just the lyric, "I'm bored with being God," is about the most Iggy Pop thing that he has ever said, and he's one of the very few people in the world who could say that, and you have to give it to him. Like, and he did a Cadillac commercial in which that song was the music bed, and in any other punk, anybody who's like really got genuine punk creds, if you really have genuine punk creds, you're not allowed to make a Cadillac commercial. You're not. Right. Except Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop is allowed to. He's from the Motor City, basically. He has never, ever once, Raw Power is like, he's never disassociated himself from just how fucking righteous the muscle cars of that era were. Like, it's just, I don't think he's hiding it at all. I think he's all about the overdrive of everything. So he gets to sing Punk Rocker. He gets to do a Cadillac commercial. He gets to do basically a dance album. He basically gets to do punk rock on a dance album, and he shows why he gets to be the king of the punks, I think, on Punk Rocker from the fantastic album Soft Machine. I love this album by the Teddy Bears from Sweden.
Yeah, okay. All right, let me see. You are going across the all over the map. I'm not sure.
The rules make it tough. The rules make it tough.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I see how your strategy is working, and it's commendable. But you're leaving classics out there, and I'm going to go ahead and I got to take the passenger.
All right, have it your way. We got to go 70s, really? Because it doesn't matter. Once somebody goes 70s, and the other one has to go 70s.
Because how are you going to leave Passenger on the table? That's the only thing. It's, I'm not going to.
Well, again, if Raw Power hadn't come out in the 70s, I think you'd have a stronger argument. It's easy to go deep. You got Funhouse. You get Raw Power. All right, which is fine. This is fine. All right. Well, strategically, I understand what you're doing here, and there's really no way.
Well, you're being more strategic about it than me, though. I'm just saying, if you're, I might already have a running back, but if you leave out, like one of the best running backs in the country, I'm going to have to take that running back. I mean, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it's just if you understand, I just think strategically, yeah, this is how it's going to end up with us. So then I do have no choice but to grab China Girl next. Because again, if I'm going to get shut out of the big two of Lust for Life, I can still grab from Lust for Life, and I didn't grab the big two, but yeah, I'm going to grab China Girl next to get into the Idiot, because you're forcing me into the 70s. You're forcing me to go grab prime 70s real estate, and I think that's the most endangered of the species. So China Girl it is.
All right, China Girl. Okay. Yeah, now's the point where I don't know if I'm going to keep with the same strategy or try to compensate for what you've done. Offense or defense, that's what it all comes down to.
I mean, the only one again, it's your strategy. You play your hand, son.
No, I shall. Yeah, I mean, right now, if I'll say this: if you hadn't picked Repo Man, I probably would be going for that right now.
Well,
but that is
strategically that had to go at first. The '80s are a problematic decade because you can't go deep you can't go 2 albums deep in the '60s.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me see. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna go another 70s one. Long preamble, but I'm gonna go with Raw Power right now.
All right. Well, that leaves me no choice. I have to take Penetration next.
All right, and okay, so neither of us have been following the premise of saying where we are. Okay, so I have 3 from the 70s, 1 from the 60s, so that's a total of 4 pre-80s for me.
Yeah.
And where are you?
I have 1 60s, 2 70s, but I've also taken one more turn than you. So I have 3 pre-80s, 5 in.
Okay. Okay, all right. Trying to keep that down on my end too, but okay, so you got Penetration, and I'm just going to keep on going down this road until I feel the need not to. I'm taking Kill City with my 5th pick, and that of course is the title track to Kill City. That gives me 4 from the 70s and 5 pre-80s, pre-1980.
That really, from my point of view, doesn't change much. I'm going to take 1970 from Funhouse. Since you got what would have been my next pick, which Kill City was my next pick, for sure. So I am grabbing a new album, I think this is the first Funhouse pull.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's my 3rd pre-80s album.
Wait.
I got The Idiot, I got Funhouse, I got Raw Power.
Okay, let me see. You got Yeah, okay, that's right. You waited longer than I thought to take your first pre-80s.
Well, I wasn't going to at all, but you did it. I mean, again, the only good reason to do it was to get the Passenger. If I had the Passenger, I would be smoking you. It wouldn't be close. It's only close because you have both the big uns from Lust for Life. But that's all going to change. We're gonna downshift here, and we're gone. But I got 1970 again. If all I had was 1970 and no fun, I'd be happy. I'd be fine.
Yeah. Well, okay, so
I got Penetration and China Girl and Repo Man. I mean, I'm not saying dog shit. This is it's a marathon, not a sprint, son.
That's right. All right, you know what? I don't have anything off of the Idiot, so I am going to take Nightclubbin'.
That's a good one. That is lovely. I'm going to grab the most. I'm going to grab one from the teens. I am going to grab his cover of Betty Davis. If I'm in luck, I might get picked up, which was his record store day single in 2012. It fucking sounds like Black Sabbath. I'm not. It's Miles Davis' wife. I don't know if anybody knows Betty Davis. She was marketed in a way that, just made it like she was making like dirty novelty records or something, but she wasn't. Those were really good records. And his cover of If I'm in Luck, I Might Get Picked Up is fucking fantastic from 2012.
All right. Okay, so that's new territory going for the 10s.
Yeah.
Let me see here. All right, I think I'm about to do you a favor here, but let me see. I'm going to give this a little bit of thought. And by the way, keep on mentioning your standing on that. So you have how many different decades now?
I have the teens, I have the aughts, I have the 80s, 70s, and 60s. I do not have the 90s.
Well, but you've already fulfilled the rule requirement, right? So that's 4.
Yeah, but I could still pick another one from.
Or no, it actually doesn't, because it's 4 different decades other than the 60s. So you're not there yet.
I still have to get one more decade in, yes.
All right.
But I only need one from that decade if I so choose.
Okay. Huh. All right. And all of yours are from different albums, right? And
I
mine
have not picked from the same album twice. And I've picked nothing from Lust for Life. You could take that album away from me entirely for top tier stuff anyway.
Well, the thing about Lust for Life is there's almost nothing but top tier stuff on it. I mean, there is the absolute elite, but it's all upper tier. I mean,
yeah, that's why I didn't fight for it.
Yeah, Lust for Life. But
people sleep on Funhouse too. People sleep on Funhouse. Again, the 70s. You can't. I think people overdo it on Lust for Life, to be honest.
Oh, I'd beg to differ.
That is the one and most likely found in the American frat house.
Oh, come on. Why do you gotta...
That doesn't make it bad.
No, it does.
It just means it's the most well-known.
Yeah. I don't... I mean, you've already tried to hurt me with telling me that Jim Rome uses it for bumper music.
It is by far... It is... The Passenger and Lust for Life are number 1 and number 2 on his streams, and the stream of The Passenger is actually bigger than Lust for Life. The stream of The Passenger is 182 million. Lust for Life is 71, and then the next one drops into the 20s.
Yeah, but okay, so you Lust for Life. Let me put it this way: Lust for Life is so good that you could tell me it's the favorite album of Hitler's Ghost, and it's still going to be one of my favorite albums.
Okay, I'm not trying to harsh your mellow. No, I'm just saying strategically. If you wanted it, it's there. I haven't even picked from it yet.
I mean, ultimately, you are never going to harsh my mellow on Lust for Life, but please stop trying it.
All right, it's you're up, son.
I know I'm up. I'm stalling. Okay.
It's not gonna work.
All right. Let me see. I feel like I gotta tackle the 80s because you've already taken the song I like most of his from the 80s, and it's going to be a rough slog. So I'm going to take a song I like off an album I don't like, which is Isolation from Blah Blah Blah. But I'm going to go with the version of it that is on the complete A&M recordings because it is a much better mix than what is on Blah Blah Blah. And that is my number 7 pick. That's my first from the 80s, and that is my my first post 1980 pick.
All right, I'm gonna try to grab a 70s. Again, I had this on my list. I don't know if this is a particularly beloved song by him. I think it's underrated. If not, I'm gonna grab the title track from New Values. It's 1979, so I now have 4 albums from the 70s. I think his Arista catalog is underrated. I like New Values, I like Soldier, and I like Party. They're not great. There's some schmaltz and some shit on there, but I think the covers he does are good. And I mean, if there's a more bootlegged artist, then I think even Iggy Pop's been more bootlegged than even Bob Dylan. Like, just if you adjust for the career length and number of songs, like I guess maybe that's bullshit. Probably Bob Dylan, then Iggy Pop. There's so many bootlegs of all this era stuff too. That's a whole set of different rules, I guess. We would have to get into if the list was too much longer. But I'm taking New Values, Arista catalog, underrated. I think that's as good a riff as he was going to have for another decade. Just saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, the New Values is still a good album, and okay, let me see here. So where are you at?
I got all my 70s requirements in terms of I have 4 different albums.
Okay.
And then I have one from every era but the 90s.
All right. And I have 6 different albums. 6 different albums. Yeah, and keep on mentioning that because I'm like trying to type it in.
Yeah, I have not done the same album twice, but then again, 2 of my choices are, or I have 3 choices that are not on full Iggy Pop albums. I've got Repo Man, Punk Rocker, and his Record Store Day single from 2012.
All right.
Which is so fucking good. Anyway.
Okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do this. It's going to make it so I cannot pick any more from Lust for Life because it will be my max. I'll have maxed it out with 3, but again, it is one of my favorite albums of all time. I don't care what frat house it happens to be in.
I'm living in your head rent free with that one. You got to just evict me here and move on.
Yeah. But again, it's so good that nothing is ever going to ruin that album for me. Nothing.
All right.
And so basically you can get anything from Lust for Life when you want because I'm done with it.
Correct.
But I'm going to take Success, which still leaves plenty of great material on Lust for Life. But I want to make sure that I have Success on my list.
Well, imagine if I won without anything from Lust for Life. Wouldn't that be amazing? What kind of skill would that represent?
Yeah, but there's no way to win with that, though. That's the whole thing.
Oh, I just said, what if? What if everything was so hot and just literally like just can't be faded? What if that? I mean, it could be.
So
that's kind of how it's setting up.
So what that is analogous to is saying, well, what if the sky was green?
No. Again, we'll see. The proof is we're not even halfway through yet. We're not even half. I mean, this is pick number 8 here. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, well,
being overrepresenting with Lust for Life strategically is great. It just depends on what else you get.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, if you have no representation of Lust for Life, then God help you. That's all I can say.
It's
And
like, how much particle board can you put in before you're not dealing with, prime lumber? That's all I'm saying. You can't
all right,
claim, it's lovely board so far.
I am at seven pre-1980 songs right now, and I have 6 different albums.
All right. I am going to close out my teens by grabbing Gardenia from Post-Pop Depression. So I have 2 now from the teens. It is from, it's one of his more recent works. I really like it. It sounds new wavy to me. I'm a Gen Xer. You pretty much wave that shit at me all day and I'll chase it. So grabbing Gardenia, closing out the teens.
Yeah, actually, I think Post-Pop Depression is a lot like it's Iggy going back to The Idiot and Lust for Life. It's going back to that era for me.
Yeah, I like it.
And yeah, I really like that album a lot too. I saw him tour off that one, and it was great. And I really think he and Josh Homme are a good collaboration, like the best collaboration he's had in a while, I believe.
It's I dig the song. I think it's great.
All right, so you have 2 from the teens, and you have
never done the same album twice.
And how many post 80?
Gardenia.
I mean, there really isn't a max on post 80, so I guess
2.
It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter.
3, 4.
Okay. Yeah, there's no cap on that though, so it doesn't matter. It's only the pre-80 that there's a cap on. Okay. Yeah. So okay, I have 1 from the 80s, and everything else is pre-1980. So I'm gonna start spreading out a little bit here, and let me see. I'm gonna go with my first from the teens, and I'm gonna go with "Gone" from the Stooges' "Ready to Die" album.
Mm.
So I'm going into the teens, but staying with the Stooges here.
Okay, I have nothing. We weren't in competition for that one. If it makes you feel any better.
I didn't figure, but you're maybe missing a bet on that one. That is actually a really good album. And I have a feeling you might have overlooked that one, and you might
The weirdness is bad, right? You'll cop to that.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure that you weren't thinking this was from Weirdness. It's not from Weirdness.
Yeah, I did give up on the reunion a little bit because of the weirdness, but I'll go back and give it a try.
Weirdness was a bad one. Then there was a good one. Actually, technically, I guess there were 2 bad ones because there were Stooges songs on Skull Ring, and anyway, getting James Williamson back in the fold, I think was maybe the trick.
Yeah, indeed. He got lucky, boy. Think about the people he worked with his career.
Yeah.
He definitely worked with some of the greats. I'm going to go to the 90s and then close out my decade requirement. I'm going to the Brick by Brick album for Butttown, which, if I can't get Butttown on this playlist, then why did we bother? Is probably the way I'll leave it with that.
Yeah. No competition for Butttown, I have to say.
Butttown is the most Iggy Pop. There's no one in the world who can do Butttown but him. And the world would have been worse off if he hadn't. It's great. And it's one of the best songs about Los Angeles ever. And I like Los Angeles. I'm not saying LA is a butt. He's saying it's a Butttown. I'm agreeing with him. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I think it's one of my favorite songs about LA.
Fair enough. All right. So do your recap, because
I have done now from all decades. I have 4 from the 70s. I have never done the same album twice.
Okay. All right. Okay, let me see. So far I have 1 from the teens, I have many from the 70s. I have only one from the 60s and one from the 80s. So,
But you only have to do one from the 60s.
well, you don't have to do one from the 60s at all, but you have to do one from each the 70s, 80s, 90s, and yeah.
Which I have now done.
Yeah.
I've deprived you of Butttown, so.
Touche. All right, so let me see if I want to get into one of the other decades. I mean, at this point, well, I shouldn't say that because there's no maximum there. All right, I'm going to get into the aughts because the aughts are pretty slim. I'm going to go with Nice to Be Dead from Preliminaire.
Interesting. That is where my next pick is coming from, and I am closing out the aughts. I'm going to do a 2 from that decade, and I'm sorry, but just got to give me my space here. I love the song A Machine for Loving from that album you mentioned. I'm going to assume it's Preliminaire as well. I think I would like Iggy Pop if I was in his, if he was somebody that I like, if he was a coworker, I think I'd like him. Like a classmate, I think I'd have liked him. He loves dogs, and the song A Machine for Loving, like that is what he is describing in the song. He's basically saying that a dog is a machine for loving. I am a dog person. I'm a cat person. I'm a pet person. I'm an animal person. I really have a soft spot for this. And while it's weird in the way that he is, and it's not too on the nose and it's not too Hallmark, it's beautiful. He's capable of writing really beautiful things, and he's capable of doing really harsh things, and really he's always sort of thought of as operating at sort of an emotional extreme, but I think a lot of there's an undercurrent in his stuff that's missed that I think is probably most clearly and openly sung on it's not even sung, it's a spoken word piece, and I wanted to get at least one sort of weird Iggy Pop thing on my list, and I love A Machine for Loving. I love dogs, I think, for the same reason he does, and I dig it. I really dig it. So 2 in a row from Preliminaire. That's kind of might be a little dead spot for the new initiative, newly initiated listener, but I'm going to agree for both of us on our choice from the aughts. I think that's probably his best record.
Yeah, Preliminaire is a pretty underrated, I think, very overlooked album.
Yeah.
I had a few on my list, which maybe when we're wrapping this up, we'll mention some of the ones that were on our list that we might have picked. I had a few from Preliminaire. Yeah, that's a good one. But the aughts in general, not a very strong decade.
It's rough
for Mr. Osterberg.
Right.
All right, so let me see here. I am going to, I think I'm going to try going to the 90s. This is a song that you want to talk about overlooked and probably, well, certainly overrated or underrated and definitely overlooked. Avenue B is not a bad album, and the song that I'm picking here is the last song on the album. So it's an album that, I don't think many people really are that aware of, and being the last track on this, I don't really fear like this was one that was going to cross reference here between you and me. But I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I have it because I think it's a pretty strong song, and it's like like you're talking about where he can get a little deep at times and maybe bare his soul a little bit. I think this is one of those, and it's also out of character, I think, because it's really a very, very much a pop song, but yeah, and very introspective as well. And that is Facade from Avenue B. That is my first 90s pick. And so at this point, I have my decade fulfillment as far as representing them all set.
I think we've both met the minimums at this point.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
I think we have, but so now this is just the flight is going to have to be to quality from here on out.
Right.
Because we both met the rules, except the 8 and 8, I think, is even met.
Yeah,
or the 9 and 7.
There are other minimums. You have to have 2 different albums from 4 different decades.
Yeah, but I have singles or compilations. Those have to count as albums.
Okay, but have you?
I've never done the same album twice, and I've met my volume commitment. I have 2 from all, except for the 90s, and I'm only taking Butttown from the 90s, which basically you gave away the whole 90s now. Well, not that there's anything to give up, but. All right, well, I'm taking Down in the Street from Funhouse. Probably could have taken the title track. Doesn't really matter at this point. Gotta come correct. We're a race for quality. Funhouse so far underrepresented, I think, in our proceedings here. So I'm grabbing it.
Well, yeah, it is underrepresented. It's not represented so far on mine, but then again, you don't have Lust for Life represented on yours, so therefore.
But everything on there is available to me other than your 3. So you've already said that the album is all killer, no thriller. You can't really go wrong with it. So I didn't protect it. I think I just had to go the other way, son.
Yeah, no, you're gonna get good stuff. The thing is, yeah, you're right. You're gonna get good stuff off of Lust for Life because there's nothing but good stuff on it. But you don't have Lust for Life, and you don't have The Passenger, and you don't have Success, and so therefore I win.
Yeah, but you're way overrepresenting one part of his career, in my humble estimation. When you choose that as your strategy, yeah,
best part.
The best part of him is the full range of what he's capable of, and to have gems that represent everything he can do. And I picked 3 deep on that.
I overrepresented a part of his career, but I picked the right part to overrepresent.
Oh, piffle. But it's your turn.
All right. Okay, let me see here. Okay. Yeah, it comes down to I mean, so far the last few picks, I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm fulfilling some of the requirements, and it's a matter of, do I keep on doing that, or? And that's where we're at. Okay, and yes, I'm stalling. Yes, I'm stalling because I have 2 ways to go with this, and I'm not sure which way I'm going to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tick-tock, son.
I know. I'm here. I got you. All right. Let me see. It's just a matter of, do I pick something from an album that I haven't picked from, or do I go ahead and double dip on something?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Either way, I'm going to win. But
holy shit, no! Because all they have to do is just go buy Lust for Life, and they got your list.
No, I can't take anything more off of Lust for Life.
That's my point. You load it up on the, again, this is like you can. Your view of his career could be accomplished by somebody shopping at Target.
No, that's not true, and that's part of the point of us doing this is that that's not true. But what is true? True? If you gave somebody a copy of Lust for Life and they didn't know Iggy Pop and they didn't know his career, and they didn't know that, they didn't know what the album title was or anything like that.
Yeah.
They would listen to it and go, "Oh, this is somebody's greatest hits."
No. Yeah, David Bowie's. That's the problem. It's exactly right.
No, that's not accurate.
Yeah, I think it's right.
That's not accurate. That they're a collaboration. That's not all David Bowie.
Raw Power isn't seen as a collaboration. They've had to release both versions.
Well, Raw Power is more a collaboration between him and Williamson.
Well, there's the Bowie mix and there's the Iggy mix, and they are strikingly different.
What I'm getting at is, in no way is Lust for Life somebody else's record other than Iggy Pop. It's primarily it's
Piffle. This is a 2 Piffle episode. Those are hard.
Wait, you're going to say right in the middle of an Iggy Pop draft, you're going to say that somebody else is more responsible for Lust for Life than Iggy Pop is?
Oh, absolutely not. What I'm saying is we're trying to produce lists that are representative of the spirit of the rules is the breadth of his career, but you're really loaded up on David Bowie stuff this way.
That's not accurate.
Oh, especially if you double dip in the idiot, you definitely are.
Well, no, I wasn't going to. Who said I was going to double dip the idiot?
Because in the 70s you're going to have to double dip into something, and if it's not Raw Power, and it's not you've already got Lust for Life, you've got 3 though. That's going to have a heavy Bowie representation in your total.
But nobody said it was the idiot that I was double dipping on.
I didn't say you were either. I said if you do. So for you to go back to the 70s and grab more David Bowie stuff, I would not necessarily frame as the best way to understand Iggy Pop. That's my point. You don't have to agree. You don't. You've got Lust for Life at the center of his career.
1, it is the prime of his career. 2, it wasn't going to be the idiot, so I don't know how it was going to be over.
Okay, is it Raw Power?
What's that?
Is it Raw Power?
At this point, I guess I'm just going to have to do what I was going to do.
Yep.
Actually, it was any one of. It wasn't necessarily either of those, actually.
Okay. Well, it's all strategy, son. I'm just trying to get to the end. We're at what, 12 or 13 now? We're getting down to the.
Yeah. You're not making this any.
I'm trying to make it as difficult as humanly possible.
That's right.
I hope that's never been in doubt. And it's not like I haven't given you enough time.
That's right. Okay, so actually, yeah, I am gonna double dip on Raw Power here. And I'm going to go for Search and Destroy because it's just too good to still be out there.
Yeah, that was my next pick. But again, I don't know. I don't I don't like the Bowie stuff as much as you.
Why would you consider that Bowie?
I'm just going to do a tally at the end and figure out how much Bowie is on your list versus mine. That's all.
But it's not right to call Raw Power a Bowie record. I mean,
they even have released it with his name on the cover. The Bowie mix.
But it's not as much of a collaboration as the Idiot and Lust for Life are.
Well, I think every note Iggy Pop played during that era has been bootlegged and released hundreds and hundreds of times. You can hear across all the different live environments and recording qualities they played at where Iggy Pop's thoughts about that music were. There's such a huge record of his playing of that era and the music from that era. There's no way to be confused about the way Iggy Pop saw it, and there's no way to see the distinction between that, or not see the distinction between that and how David Bowie saw it. They're different understandings of it. That's all. And I'm not trying to say that that's not Iggy Pop stuff, but I'm saying the parts in his career where David Bowie was around are distinct. They're very distinct, and I would say not representative of him as a whole.
Well, it's his creative peak.
I think you could make a case for the first Three Stooges records, and that is a matter of taste. There's not a right or wrong.
Well, at any rate, his peak is from 69 to 79.
I don't disagree with that, but the Stooges and the solo stuff are markedly different.
Well, okay, yeah, but both great, and yeah, I mean, it's I don't have like a strong preference for the post Stooges stuff, or all of that stuff from 69 to 79. That's about as strong as you can get. So
it's because of the songwriting. It's because of the one consistent thing. You've taken Search and Destroy, which is very well played. I can always come back to Raw Power. I'm going to grab Fall in Love with Me from Lust for Life. For me next. I don't know how much 70s I got left. Maybe I'll have to go back to Raw Power one more time, but my Lust for Life entry will put Fall in Love with Me.
Wow, there's still some great stuff that, yeah. Lust for Life still has great stuff that hasn't been touched. Okay, so that gives you how many pre-80 ones?
That is a good call. So I have 2 from the 80s picked, 1 from the 90s. So I have 2, 2, 2, and 1, 7.
7, okay.
So I've made my quota.
Well, yeah, there wasn't a minimum pre-80. There was a maximum, which is 9.
Yeah, so I'm...
So you're still 2 away from maxing. I'm 1 away from maxing pre-80. And let me see. So I could burn that out or wait. And let me see. I think I gotta try and. All right. So I have 1 90s. I have 1 80s. And 1 10s. 1 aughts. So I definitely gotta start filling that out.
TikTok.
Yep. That's right. I got another weird one from the 90s that I like a lot that isn't on any, isn't on most people's lists or anything like that. But it's a song I like a lot off an album that isn't so great and not really one that anybody cares that much about, and that's Naughty Little Doggy. And the song is Hard as Saved. Really good rocker, really good catchy rocker, and not any song that somebody's going to think is one of his all-time greatest or anything like that, but a song I think is worth putting on my list. So I have my 2 from the 90s.
All right, so the 90s I think I'm going to leave as my decade where I only pick 1. I think I'm going to let it go. I think I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to grab a little more quality here. I'm going to do 1 more duck back, and I'm going to grab the title track from Raw Power.
Well, how are you going to do that when that was my number 4 pick?
Oh, you did? Oh, wait. So you got Raw Power and Search and Destroy?
That's right. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Then I'll take Gimme Danger.
Okay.
That's not the step down that maybe you think, but
oh no, I don't think it's a step down at all. Like the thing about it is when I was picking Search and Destroy, I was like, do I pick Gimme Danger? I can't pick Gimme Danger when Search and Destroy is still out there. So it is a bit of a consolation prize, but it's a good consolation prize, much like.
Well, you got Kill City. Kill City is by far the most jealous I am of anything you have. That's the key. That's how I had to work harder after you picked it than I would have if I'd gotten it.
Yeah, I mean, when we read off our list, the jealousy will flow at that point.
Not today, son. Not today.
I think so. It's going to keep my win streak of these drafts alive and kicking.
Because you don't listen to mine.
What do you mean?
You'd have to actually listen to mine and see how outclassed you actually are.
I know the song. I know all the songs on your list.
Yeah.
I know. In the
No,
other
I
draft,
think you need a couple hours of some open road with my playlist, and I mean, the hips don't lie, I believe is the saying. I think you'll see that it'll almost be like a marionette with that, just the absolute, just the amount of thrust coming through the speakers with the way that the list is laid out. I think you'll see. You're just delaying. I'm helping you. I'm aiding you, and I shouldn't do that.
Oh, no, I don't know. All right, so anyway, you have 8 pre-80 now, so we're both one away from maxing that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me see. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pick another one from the teens, and I also, as we mentioned earlier, I like post-pop depression a lot. I'm gonna go with American Valhalla from post-pop depression.
Well, I'm going to use my last 70s pick to grab Funhouse, the song of Funhouse. So I have Down in the Street 1970 and the title track for Funhouse. That'll be my 3-bagger.
Oh, that's your 3. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, Funhouse. It's so
fun. If you can find it, there is the Cars did a cover of this that wasn't released until it was only on this this double disc compilation they had in the 90s. It's a purple glitter cover, and it's got 3 covers that they recorded as demos for a friend of theirs, like arrangement ideas for songs. And Benjamin Orr's vocal rendering of Funhouse is uncanny how good it is. Apparently, he also did it for Iggy Pop at one point, and Iggy Pop was quite taken with it too. So, just a little sidebar there. If you can find the Cars cover of Funhouse, the cover itself is not necessarily anything to write home about, but fucking Ben Orr does it almost spot on perfect, Iggy, of that era. Anyway,
now this isn't meant to be a hot take. I feel like you're going to take it as such. It's not, because, like I said, there isn't anything from 69 to 79 that I don't love from this catalog. I will say that Funhouse is my least favorite Stooges record. I mean, well, least favorite Stooges record up to 79. I'm not talking about like weirdness or whatever. So I don't. That would be a hot take if I said I like Funhouse less than that. But what I'm saying is, I like the first record, and I like I like Raw Power more. And if you want to call Kill City in any way a Stooges record, I'll even put that ahead of it. Funhouse is great. I like Funhouse a lot, but I have to say it's my least favorite record in that period for the Stooges.
Well, I was going to try to grab there was an outtake from Raw Power, Cock in My Pocket, that I was considering taking instead of Funhouse. And because it's not, I was checking as you were doing your last pick whether or not it had ever been put out on a reissue, and I can't find an official release of Cock in My Pocket, or I would have picked that. I'm not necessarily saying I'm unhappy with the pick of Funhouse. I think it's great. I mean, 1970 is fucking awesome, and Down in the Street, as far as like a kickoff opener, is fucking amazing, and the title track's pretty fucking good too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is I would like to have Funhouse represented on my list, but I didn't
leave you anything.
You didn't really leave much, and that's really why Funhouse is lower on my list, is because there just isn't as much on it that I like a lot. So at this point, there isn't anything I really want to put on my list from Funhouse, although I'd really, really like to have it represented. But I guess I won't. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to let me see, because I haven't double dipped on the first Stooges record yet. So I'm going to go back and double dip on that and take 1969. So you got 1970, I got 1969.
So wait, which pick is this? Are we at the last pick? Are we done?
No, well, you are. That was 15 for me, and
so I have my one left. This is it for me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to black pill the whole thing then, and I'm taking "Real Wild Child" from blah blah blah. Say what you want about blah blah blah, and you already have.
Well, the main thing is it's not so much the songs. I think there could be. There's something there. The production, I detest the production and the mix. The complete A&M recordings at least offer a better mix of the songs, and it improves them quite a bit. But the production itself still, it's that horrible 80s production that just grates on me.
Yeah, I mean, God, I would love to know what asshole in his orbit told him not to license Real Wild Child to the Pretty Woman soundtrack. Like, talk about a career fuck up. I mean, I haven't read the Wikipedia. Maybe there's some other story. I was so lazy I didn't even look that up. But from what I remember, he wanted too much money for that version. So the producers of Pretty Woman were like, well, screw it. We'll just have somebody else do a like spot on version of your cover. And so I think he would have been a very rich man, or a much richer man. It's a great cover.
Okay. I think he's doing okay.
He wasn't always, though. I think in the 70s and late 70s and 80s, he was broke. And I'm glad that Real Wild Child was a hit. I liked Blah 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 at the time. Every album sounded like that, shitty. And then I bought Cold Metal, and I was like, or Instinct, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great because it's got Steve Jones on it. Back then, I didn't have any money. I could afford maybe one trip I would wait for Target to have cassettes. They would do $5.99 cassettes like once or twice a quarter. And I would usually save up, and I could afford to maybe get 2 cassettes if they were $5.99 for all records in the store. And I used one of my picks to get Instinct. And I just remember wanting to cry in the car because it was so bad, because there were other albums I wanted. And I got this terrible, terrible album. And so I did tune out after a while for Iggy Pop. I had to go back and rediscover the catalog because the 80s stuff, the 80s was rough for him, man. And
another thing about Instinct, Instinct, I agree. The A&M, the complete A&M recordings also has a live set with a lot of the songs from Instinct on it, and the live versions of those do improve over the studio stuff. So that.
All right. Well, I'll give that a listen.
Yeah, I mean, there's still not the greatest period of Iggy's career. But I would say just because you're familiar with those songs, though, it might be worth listening to the live versions just to see if that changes anything.
Yeah.
Because they do, I think they improve on those tracks a great deal, but it's still not like the strongest period of Iggy's career.
I was really happy when Real Wild Child took off for him. I think the cover's good. He's a rock and roll fan. If you haven't heard the original Real Wild Child, you have to. It's, from what I read or understand, it's Buddy Holly and the Crickets, but it's not Buddy Holly singing. It's the drummer, Jerry whatever. And that is a fucking barn burner. It's slapped before music slapped. So if you can find it, it's recorded under the name Ivan, Ivan. Look up the original Real Wild Child. It's like, it's not punk, but like it's wild, boy. That's a wild ass record. And so the fact that Iggy Pop sterilized it and it still was pretty good, I'm not ashamed. I'll take it. That's how I close out.
All right. Well, I'm going to close out. I still have an obligation to get 2 different albums from the 80s here. So I'm going to take, let me see, just a second. I'm gonna see if this is worth rethinking. I'm gonna go with "I Need More" from Mosquito.
Now, I just want to make sure I got this. I might only be at 15.
No, you're at 16.
At 16?
I've taken them down.
Okay, got it.
But you better have your
I'm
list.
recounting. Hold on, I'm recounting. Funhouse, Fall in Love with Me. Oh, I'm missing one. I got it.
Okay. All right. So when you're ready, you can recap yours, and then I'll recap mine.
Hold on. Gimme Danger was the one I forgot. I had to do the audible on that because you did get Search and Destroy. All right.
14.
I got Repo Man, No Fun, Punk Rocker, China Girl, Penetration, 1970. If I'm in luck, I might get picked up. New Values, Sardinia, Butttown, A Machine for Loving, Down in the Street, Gimme Danger, Fall in Love with Me, Funhouse, and Real Wild Child. Wow, that's art. That's art.
Oh, come on. Okay, so this is my list. Good Lord. Okay, Lust for Life. I Don't Want to Be Your Dog. The Passenger. Raw Power. Kill City. Nightclubbin'. Isolation. Success. Gun. Nice to Be Dead. Facade. Search and Destroy. Heart is Saved. American Valhalla. 1969. And I Need More.
Yeah. It's your first half is hot, but the second half, almost, I'd say half your list has never been yelled out from a crowd at him to play that night.
Half of my list?
Yeah.
You're saying the second part of my list has never been yelled out?
Half your list is the David Bowie era, and the other half is stuff that's never been yelled out as a crowd request.
First of all, you say David Bowie era like that's a bad thing.
It's overrepresentative. It's overrepresented in your list. You're most impressed with your string of David Bowie collabs, and I'm laying off the Bowie on my list, and I think a tie would go to me because I'm deliberately picking away from the Bowie stuff.
I don't know how it's overrepresented. First of all, I only have one from The Idiot.
Yep.
Okay,
but and my 70s list is here's Funhouse, and I got New Values. So I have 4 70s picks that are all killer, no thriller without his touch, without Bowie on it at all.
Well, first of all, you say that like Bowie's a bad thing. All right, so I have 3 from Lust for Life. I have 2 from Raw Power. I have 2 from the Stooges. I have 1 from Kill City. I have 1 from The Idiot. I mean, everything else is a 1.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we were doing the best work of Iggy Pop with David Bowie, you win Going Away.
Well, therefore I win Going Away.
No way! Then you don't like him. You like him with David Bowie. It would be like you don't like the Talking Heads albums that Brian Eno doesn't produce or something like.
So the only thing that's represented better from that decade, the only thing that's represented better on your list is Funhouse. That's it. That's the end.
But that's the 70s. Your version of if you're trying to explain the decade of the 70s in his career, you explain it with David Bowie, and I don't.
And you explain it with Funhouse. So it's like Funhouse is the only thing in that decade that you have that I don't.
I explained it with the Stooges. The 70s stuff is the Stooges to me.
I have the Stooges well represented here. I have I Want to Be Your Dog, and I have 1969, and I have Raw Power, and I have Search and Destroy.
What I'm saying is your version of the Iggy Pop 70s is more Bowie heavy than mine, and I'm okay with it. And you're basically
you shouldn't be okay with that.
Oh, I totally am.
You shouldn't be.
Iggy Pop would be worth doing a draft about if he had never done any of those records with David Bowie.
Yeah, it'd be a much different draft, though.
Totally. But I think if you want to represent his entire career of like where his real peaks are, I think you are way over invested in Bowie and 70s.
So you're saying that Funhouse was the peak?
No, I'm saying if I'm trying to tell a story here about his career here, and the 70s are the most important decade for him for a lot of reasons. I believe that the most important stuff to understand from him in the 70s is the Stooges stuff, not the solo stuff. You're heavier on this.
I have that better represented than you.
You have picked what percentage of your 70 songs are Bowie collaborations?
Well, what you consider Bowie collaborations are different than me. I consider the Bowie collaborations The Idiot and Lust for Life.
Yeah, but Bowie's name is on the Raw Power product and has been since the day it was put out.
Yeah, but he wasn't really part of the songwriting process.
All right. Well, we're not going to resolve this here, and the good news is we don't have to.
Okay.
That's the best part.
All right. Do you want to go through any that you left off that you might have picked?
Yeah, Kill City's a tough one. I don't know the history of that record, and I don't remember if that was actually released in its time or if that's just like a bootleg that ended up being officially released way after the case. I remember seeing that record in every indie record store I was a kid. You know what I mean? That record was everywhere, but it was always like some janky import. So if I was to play Lawyer Ball, was Kill City released in 76 or whatever?
Released. Let me see here. The release date was November 77. It was recorded in 75, released in 77.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I feel like New Values is where he picks that strand up again after doing the RCA stuff. I don't know. I think the Stooges stuff is to say that Funhouse isn't the equal of the debut or Raw Power is not a slight. Nothing is the equal of that. And if I don't think, I love 1970, and I think 1970 is like, you can judge whether or not a band can play or not based on their cover of 1970. Admittedly, that reflects a bias in my musical taste, because I do like the post-punk stuff, and I do like a little of the gothic stuff, and lots of the post-punk, punk, and gothic bands cover 1970. And it's God, that song fucking rips. So I do want to talk about 1970 again, just because there's so many good covers of it. I think it's so proto-punk that like you literally can sort out who can play by whether they have it. But that wasn't your question. Sorry, I just had to talk about that. Neither of us picked. You picked Nightclubbing,
right? Yeah.
But we didn't pick Fun Time, and we didn't pick Sister Midnight. I mean, The Idiot, I thought, might have gone deeper. The Idiot is famous in part because that's the album that was playing when Ian Curtis killed himself. I don't think it adds necessarily too much to it, but that's part of its lore.
I thought he was watching, what's the movie? Wasn't he watching...
the Werner Herzog or whatever?
Yeah, the Werner Herzog movie, blanking on the name of right now, but with the one with the chicken. Strozik.
All right. Oh, yeah. Supposedly he was also listening to Idiot. Sorry, I still not answer your question. I love his cover of Sea of Love from Party. I was never going to put that on the list. I loved his cover of Everybody's Talking, and I thought his cover of Michelle was not bad. From Après, I believe. I think he likes the French language. I'm not sure he's great at it. It's a little cringy. And then the last thing I want to say is... go ahead.
Preliminary worked, but yeah, Après isn't so good.
Yeah. Zombie Birdhouse is it's a bit of a weird spot in his career. I think Christine or Debbie Harry or both of them produced it. I can't remember. From Blondie. And I'm a Blondie fan, so I would be predisposed to liking it. Zombie Birdhouse is a little probably arty by his standards. It wasn't on the streaming services for a long time, and it was hard to find. The only place I could get it was on as an import. It really hasn't been in print in a long time. and it gets kind of a bum rap. If you like the sort of weirder end of his catalog, Zombie Birdhouse actually I think is aging pretty well, and I think it's a little easier to put in context now than it was at the time. It was a little out there at the time, and I think he needed a hit, and instead of having a hit album, he came out with one of his sort of weirder albums, so I think it sent him a bit on a tailspin. Are you surprised that neither of us picked Candy? Because that's got to be one of the most well-known songs of his. That was certainly a huge radio hit, Candy.
Yeah, I guess. I guess in retrospect, I probably could have picked it because, like if I wanted it to be representative of something other than just my personal taste, maybe I would have picked Candy because it was certainly a hit. But I picked a song I liked more for my second 90s song. It's not a bad song or anything. It's not the most Iggy song, like that album isn't the most Iggy album. Except for the cover seems, to be pretty right on, and really, like Don Was produced him again later on Avenue B. And I think the results were a bit better. I think that first one, well, commercially it was successful, but the production I don't think was quite right on that album.
Not to relitigate, but Funhouse, but TVI is another like foundational alternative, whatever, post-punk, like if you can play, if you can actually play, those bands are playing. I think, doesn't Sonic Youth cover TVI? I think too. That's like foundational to an entire genre of music like 1970 is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, and by the way, the only thing that David Bowie had to do with Raw Power was doing a mix of it. So that's in no way a David Bowie collaboration. And I'm going to reiterate my case on that.
Why are they putting out two mixes then? Why is it such a different product?
Because he did a mix of it, but that doesn't make it a David Bowie. I guess technically maybe it does make it a David Bowie collaboration. David Bowie wasn't so part of the creative process, though. The product was already there and he's mixing it. So it's much different. What he did on Raw Power is much different than what he did on The Idiot and Lust for Life. It's a whole different role. Anyway, though, okay, so speaking of Lust for Life, though, still plenty of great songs off of that one. I can't stress how much. I mean, I've said it a lot already, and I'll probably say it again down the road. But neither of us picked Some Weird Sin, which I think is a sin. But didn't really have I didn't really have any more room on it on my list. You did. And neither of us picked Tonight, which is another great one off of Lust for Life. And 16, neither of us picked 16 off Lust for Life.
I have to say, I'm sorry, keep going. Sorry, I have to go back. I have to concede defeat. I thought you'd want to hear it right away, but I will let it, we'll come back.
Okay. Well, now
I have to concede defeat because I got the Ben Orr thing wrong. He did Fun Time, not Funhouse, and this is just old man brain. Okay. But I think I sang it accurately. I think I sang Fun Time, not Funhouse. I should have picked Fun Time. That's what I meant. But whatever. I'll take Funhouse all day.
So Loose is another good track off of Funhouse that I considered picking just to have it represented. I didn't quite feel it was good enough. I felt like there was still something better I could put on my list than having Loose on it.
What's bad on Funhouse?
Well, I'm not saying there is anything, but there's just so much good stuff in the 70s that's how Funhouse ended up not being represented on my list. No Sense of Crime off Kill City is another good one. Johanna off Kill City is another good one. So we have 18 songs.
Master Charge from Kill City is good too.
Yeah, we have 18 songs between us from pre-1980, but there's still plenty of other good material out there. And then in the 80s, then it's thinning out. Pleasure from Party is like a dark horse that was on my list from the 80s.
I'm a conservative from Soldier. is a little cringy, but it's good.
Yeah, the idea is right. The execution, I think, isn't quite there.
Well, he clearly is either not all there or doesn't care, but there was an idea there at least.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Low Life from Soldier. I maybe in hindsight I would have gone for that because I think I was thinking about this. It's a kind of a country tune, and where else do you even find an Iggy Pop country tune? And so that would have been, I think, a nice one to have on my list just to sort of round things out. Take Care of Me is what I did have, or no, didn't I? That was my last pick, right?
I think so.
No, I picked I Need More. That was my last pick. Okay. So Take Care of Me is another good one. And then let's see. Yeah, okay. So then moving on to the 90s, Shakin' All Over, he did a cover of Shakin' All Over from Avenue B, which is not, I had other ones I wanted to pick that were his songs, so I favored those over Shakin' All Over, but it's a really good version of that.
I mean, Naughty Little Doggy is not a good album. American Caesar is not a good album. Brick by Brick is
right. You're right, but they're not all bad too. Like the thing about the 90s, you can find some good things. It's hard finding great things. Look Away is a good song off Naughty Little Doggy that he wrote about Johnny Thunders. That's another one that's the last track off the album, and it ends up being, maybe possibly the strongest one on the album. Let's see. I kind of like Something Wild off Brick by Brick, but then that's one where I really think the production holds it back. I think that really could have come off like a classic Iggy song, but it just doesn't have the right production to do it. No teeth. There's just no teeth to it. And then moving on to the aughts, How Insensitive and from Preliminary, and then a song that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce because it's, I know a bit of French, but I can't even attempt this one.
Again, I think his French is not great. His French is not great.
Well, I'm saying this title is a little challenging for me though. But anyway, he also made an appearance on at the Drive-In, their album Relationship Command on Rolodex Propaganda, which was good. And then in the teens, for me, it's really about that Stooges Ready to Die album and post Pop Depression. Those are two really good albums that he had in the teens. And the Ready to Die title track is a good one, and Burn's a good one off of that. And then you picked Gardenia, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then Paraguay and Sunday are also good tracks off of post Pop Depression.
The last thing I would say is if you have the one thing the internet is good for is it does save you from having to make any dud purchases for the most part. Like that's the one thing that's kind of missing from the current world is there's no reason to buy an album from somebody you've never heard of without hearing it first at this point. But it was much harder back in the day to do that. And so I just remember every time I would go to the Iggy Pop section in record stores back in the day, 2/3 of the music in there was gray market or just flat out bootlegs. And his a lot of that stuff, I don't know how the law works. Maybe someday we should get somebody on who can explain how the copyright works for, like I know that Italy allows live recordings to be put out by anybody or something like that, or there's some way in which bootlegs are quasi-legal there. You really should go through and spend time with all of the gray market stuff that's on Spotify. And most of my listening to his stuff in recent years has been that kind of stuff. Like, again, I didn't know Cock on My Pocket. Again, I don't want to act. When 1970 came out, I had just been born. Like my first real introduction to the Stooges catalog was thinking like the mid '80s sometime. Rolling Stone put out the greatest 200 albums of all time, and I think they put Raw Power in the top 10, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember, like, I knew every album in the top 10 pretty well, or kind of, but I did not really know that record. I was like 15 years old, you know. So, you know, I basically bought it on trust, but, you know, like Cock in My Pocket wasn't on Raw Power then. It's only years and years later that I've gone back and listened to all those shows from that era, and you realize, like, just how, I mean, we talk about Big Star sort of as being the classic woulda, coulda, shoulda. There's some of that with him too. Those, like, Raw Power was not a big monster seller in its time. You know what I mean? Like, it was considered, I think, a commercial dud, if I'm not mistaken. Basically after that, was Kill City, right? And that was like not even, I don't even know that even was on a major label by then. He really wasn't selling.
Probably not. It wasn't really what record companies were going to be looking for.
Yeah. But to your point, like, the prime of his career is 69 to, say, 79, let's say. I would include New Values as the last, like, major statement of that paradigm for him for a while anyway. Even through New Values, I would say, go listen to the live stuff contemporaneous to Raw Power, Kill City, and New Values, and maybe even the first two Arista, the other Arista records, the Party and Soldier. There's a lot of stuff he demoed back then and in the 80s that never came to much fruition that was really good. That was really, really good. And a lot of it's covers. I think he might have been creatively shot a little bit around that time, but his cover of Time Won't Let Me from back then is pretty good. His cover of Family Affair is better than you might think. And he does a cover of Animals, It's My Life back then. There's a bunch of stuff from that era where he may have been out of ideas, but he still was Iggy Pop. Like, he still had the fire in the belly. And the reason I was so excited to pick Repo Man is, like, I think that was his first getting the mojo back. Like, that is a nasty record. It really is in its own. There's like a cult around the whole soundtrack for Repo Man. It's interesting as a soundtrack, but that is the highlight, I think, by far. And that really was the first time I thought he got his edge back and his mojo back since maybe New Values. But the live shows from that era aren't good. The demos are. So live shows from the late 70s, demos from the early and mid 80s, Spotify's great for.
Yeah, and Repo Man, I think, was where the Steve Jones collaboration began. Yeah, and he was living in LA when he got when the director of Repo Man approached him about, like, he came to his apartment. And he said he was living in just an efficiency with a futon, and that was about it. And he was approached about doing Repo Man, and the band that he put together to do that was Steve Jones, Clem Burke, and Nigel Harrison.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so not a bad deal.
He should have been, like, I don't know how well off he is now, but I mean, there are interviews of him. There's one really unsettling one, and I'll try to put it in the notes of my playlist in the 80s of him in Britain, basically telling the interviewers, like, I'm broke, I'm over here for money. If you would like to steer me towards an opportunity where I can make some money, please give me a call. Like, he was scraping there, and that is a guy who should have never been scraping. The importance of him to what Americans think of American culture as, you can't overstate it. And I mean, there are a lot of bands who can make a claim that they are proto-punk, but I think it's pretty hard to argue that anybody really had the spirit of punk down first before them.
Right.
Like, name the Stooges, like picking the epithet as your name, which is, I mean, punk itself, I think the origin of the word is are men who are used sexually in prison is what the origin of the word punk is. So this idea of embracing the epithets thrown at you and labeling, empowering yourself, and by choosing to apply the language to yourself on your own terms, like, that's a very common thing to talk about now. but it would not have been in the 60s and 70s. Like, he was genuinely dangerous, I think, in the 60s and 70s, in the same way the Sex Pistols ended up being. You can't say that about the Standells or the Barbarians or even the who I love. The Who I really genuinely love, including the 60s rock and stuff, but I don't even think you could make a case that Pete Townsend has the moral claim to being the first punk quite to the degree that Iggy Pop does. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say where who planted, I think the seed was planted before Iggy, but Iggy is definitely the trunk of the tree,
Yeah. He should have never had a moment without being, the amount of money he made for record companies and the amount of culture that stems from like decisions he made, like performances he gave, the aesthetic he was about, like you could the continuity from him to Sid Vicious is there, the sort of nihilistic end of it, but he survived. He also had he was I think he was a capital A artist in a way that Sid Vicious wasn't. I think he's deep, and I think he's treated as sort of just as like some sort of street tough, which he definitely plays that up too, but he's a genuine artist, and his career, the stuff that he has mastery of, there's not a lot of people who can do all the stuff he can do at such a high level, and he just never got paid the way he was supposed to. You know what I mean? He never. The amount of money he generated for the world is astronomical, and the amount of it that he was allowed to keep is embarrassingly tiny. It's shameful that guy was ever broke, considering how important he is. So anyway, sorry to turn this into a giant lecture, but the more time this working on this really did force me to just go back, and I realized 50 years of pulling aces. Like, he didn't pull them every time, but to be able to pull an ace in 5 decades at all, how many people can say that? Like, how many people really could say they have 5 decades where they pulled an ace? It's like almost no one. Almost no one.
Okay, and you opened the Sid Vicious can of worms on me, and we're running out of time.
All right, well,
I mean, I'll just say this quick, because you brought it out. Like, okay, I've never understood why Sid Vicious gets the credit that he gets for punk, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, look, we have to do a show about it eventually. Then all I will say is this: is that I keep going back to this. I'm making the playlist for my nephew, and I'm trying to explain punk. My nephew's father is African American, so he's a mixed race. I'm trying to explain to a 20-year-old kid in the year 2020 what punk was, and I don't think you can do that without talking about the black pill end of it, the genuine, like Johnny Rotten saying about anarchy and smashing people, smashing the passerby, and no future and all that. And Johnny Rotten is what Bob Dylan was to me as an adult, John Lydon was to me as a kid. So I'm not dissing him at all. But what John Lydon sort of sang about, the sort of nihilistic dumbass, just knucklehead shit, like just you've made me a moron, Sid Vicious was the embodiment of, and it was important to see, like, for the world to see what a dead end that really is. John Lydon was too smart to ever be that. You know what I mean? Sid Vicious is an example of, if you treat a human being like garbage pretty much from the time they're born, if you don't, his own mother was giving him drugs when he was a kid. He never had a chance. That's sort of the embodiment of the nihilism that Iggy Pop could have ended up. Sid Vicious did end up. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that Iggy Pop wasn't Sid Vicious, has to do with talent more than, it's not a matter of luck. But, Sid Vicious is important because he was the dead end.
There's a lot I would like to respond to, but we just don't have the time.
All right, we'll do it some other time. This was we said we were going long today. We warned the affiliates.
Yeah. It didn't seem like it was actually going to happen until it did, though.
All right, there you go. It's my fault. But if you're gonna go long, if going long for Iggy Pop is no sin.
Yeah, we just ended up going. We took a little bit of a turn that I
What are
didn't.
you gonna do? Well, we'll get back to it because I stand for the Sex Pistols way harder than you, so it's inevitable. We'll get there.
I'm again. We don't have time, but I don't have anything against the Sex Pistols. I just Sid Vicious. I think because he became, like he was the face of something. But to me, he's not really the heart and soul of anything, but gets credit for being that because he was the face.
All right, next week it is. I think our first show in May. I guess that's up next.
Yep, we'll see you next week.